The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're mine. They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. That's what it sounded like. Good, so you know who I am. Because then you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Or just watching us right now?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's going to be a fun show, a very fun show. We did a couple episodes of Staring, one on how to survive a zombie apocalypse, and one on some sort of like end time survival, how to prepare for the end times or something like that. And in those episodes, I talked about growing your own food, preserving your own food, and how you can do it very cheaply, how seed packs only cost like 25, 50 cents, that kind of thing. And I had a listener that actually sent a message. And they said they had listened to the shows and they liked them. But I had talked on those shows about being able to grow your own food and preserve it, and that you can do it cheap. But they said, what if you don't have any money to spare? Like any extra money to put on seeds or soil or any of that kind of stuff. If you're working with pretty much a zero budget. The challenge was to me is, yeah, you can do it cheap, but can you do it for free? That was the challenge, basically. So I love a challenge. I love a challenge. I told the person, well, you're never going to do it 100% for free because you have to input materials in order to get materials out, okay? But here's the caveat here. We can do it without spending any extra money that you wouldn't have already spent on something else. So in other words, everything we're going to use as an input to put into this is going to be something you already have, that you've already bought for another purpose some other time, that you can now use to grow your food and to survive. So that's the challenge for tonight. That's the show. Is I'm going to attempt to explain, and I haven't put any thought into this. Just understand that before we do this. Like, I haven't planned this show out or anything. I literally got this message today. And I haven't had any time to prepare anything or to think about it or anything. We're just flying by the seat of our pants here, just out of nowhere, right? That's what we're going to do. Because I love a challenge, and I'm going to give this an honest go to where I'm not pre-planning and all that. This is just me going, okay? So, we talked on the other shows about seed packets. Okay, being 25 cents, 50 cents. Now, to me, that's a good deal. That's pretty cheap. You know, pretty much everybody should be able to afford to go down to like a Dollar Tree or something and pick up a couple seed packs here and there to be able to grow something. But the challenge here is for free, without spending any money. Now, there's no other reason you're going to be buying seed packs other than to plant the seeds. So we can't get away with that. We have to figure out how to get seeds to plant without spending any money. Okay, well, everybody here eats. We all eat fruits and vegetables. At least I hope we all do in some form. So going with the theme of the show tonight, that it's okay to repurpose things that you've already bought. Most of the food that you buy, you can replant. Most of the fruits and vegetables. All the fruit have seeds in them. A lot of the vegetables that you buy have seeds in them. Okay, and some of the vegetables you buy are the seed. Okay, like if you buy garlic, for example, say you're somebody who really likes garlic. Well, you can buy yourself a big clove or a big whole piece of garlic, and it has all those individual cloves in it. Now, you'll break those up, you'll put them in your garlic press, you'll press them out, and you'll use them to eat, right? Well, if you take one of those and you plant a few of those cloves instead of squishing them, then you will grow entire new garlic plants. It'll have a big ball of garlic again, right? With onions, everybody cuts off that end of the onion that has like the roots coming off of it, right? Everybody cuts that off and throws it away. Well, instead of throwing that away, you plant that, and you'll grow another onion from it. Okay, so that's the idea for the seeds. You're going to harvest your seeds from the food you're already buying and already eating. So you're not spending any extra money on seeds. You're simply not throwing away the seeds that you ordinarily would throw away. Okay, so if you eat an apple, you're going to take those seeds out of the core and you're going to pop them out. You're going to put them on a paper towel, let them dry out, and then you're going to put them in a baggie. Okay, if you're eating stuff like garlic, stuff like potatoes, let a potato go to where it gets the eyes on it, and then you can cut chunks of potato that have an eye on it out, replant those, you'll grow a whole new potato plant. And on that potato plant will be a hell of a lot of potatoes. Same thing for sweet potatoes, works the exact same way. Okay, almost everything you buy, you can replant. Even things like celery. You take that leafy part at the end of celery, you cut that off, you cut the bottom part off, you eat the middle, right? Well, you can take the leafy part, you can either eat it if you want, or you can compost that. And then you can take that bottom section and you can replant it, and you'll grow a whole new celery plant. Okay, a lot of those things are like that. You can look up online. I'm not going to go through every plant in the world on how to replant it, but you can replant all of them pretty much. The easy ones are the ones that have the seeds. Okay, you're going to pull the seeds out, you're going to dry the seeds, you're going to store the seeds. And when it comes time to plant, you'll plant those seeds. That takes care of the seeds. Now you have your seeds. You haven't spent any extra money, only what you already spent to buy the food. You eat the food, you got your money's worth, you're throwing the seeds away anyway, you might as well save them and use them. Okay, that takes care of that. Now you got to have something to plant them in. Now you can't go out and buy potting soil in this challenge, which sucks. But you can simply dig a hole and plant the stuff in it in your yard. And you might say, well, James, what if I don't have a yard? What if I only have like an apartment? Okay, well, that makes it more difficult. But you can go and you can collect leaves, you can collect all kinds of stuff. You know, any kind of organic material. You can take all of those scraps from your vegetables after you get the seeds out of them, and you can make yourself a compost pile. If you don't have property to make a compost pile on, you can make yourself a compost bin. Okay, that's as simple as taking an old trash can, an old container, an old tote, something like that, and throwing all that stuff in it. And then you sit it outside and you go and you find yourself some worms and you put in there with it. There you go. Now you're making compost. That stuff's going to start to break down. The worms are going to start eating it. They'll start shitting. You'll get good compost out of that. Okay, easy cheesy. You can make your own soil. Okay, I make soil here all the time. I have giant compost heaps going all the time, where I put leaves, grass clippings, food scraps, wood chips. I do a lot of wood chipping because I have like 30 acres, so I have a lot of woods and a lot of trees. I have several orchards, so there's a lot of extra organic material that's always coming. I used to have cattle. I used to run like 20 head of cattle here, and so I'd always have tons of manure. I don't have the cattle anymore because the price went to hell, and it's just not worth doing all that work and not making any money off of it. So I got rid of the cows and I planted orchards and stuff instead. But if you have animals, I mean, that's a perfect thing to get is the manure and throw in your compost pile. But anyway, point is, any organic material, table scraps, all that kind of stuff, you can make compost out of. The general rule is you want browns and greens. Your greens are your table scraps, your grass clippings when they're fresh, stuff like that. Your browns are your grass clippings after they've sat and turned into more of a hay-like consistency. Any wood, stuff like that, old leaves, all that kind of stuff is brown. Basically, green is stuff that's alive or was just alive. Brown is stuff that's been dead a while. Okay, you throw all that stuff in, and it makes compost. It heats up, turns into soil. So that's how you can get your own soil. You can just make it. It's very, very simple to do. If you don't want to do that, I mean, just simply when you go outside, man, you're going to get to some point where there's dirt somewhere. You know, you can get dirt for free. That's not a difficult thing to do. And then making that dirt more fertile is very easy. It's a simple matter of adding organic material to it and letting it compost down. Okay, a great thing to add to your soil to amend it is coffee grounds. Most of you drink coffee. I drink coffee. Every morning when I make my pot of coffee, once it's done, I turn everything off. I take those coffee grounds and that coffee filter and I put them in a bag. And then when that bag fills up, I take it down and throw it on a compost heap. That's a great source of nitrogen. It'll really heat up your pile and it'll be great for your plants. So you can easily make your own. So, I mean, hell, you could literally just save all your coffee grounds and plant directly in that if you had to, and it'll grow. You know, there's also ways to do it with hydroponics where you're just growing just in water. That's a little more complicated, a little more complicated system that you will have to spend some money on. So that won't qualify for this challenge, but it can also be done. Okay, but dirt is an easy thing to find. I mean, literally anywhere you go outside, anywhere there's grass, there's dirt. Just dig up a little bit of it, put it in a bag, take it home with you. Simple. Make your own compost. That's your best fertilizer in the world. You know, that organic material, it'll break down and it'll be beautiful. So that takes care of your seeds and that takes care of something to plant them in. Okay, so already you're starting to grow. Now you might say, okay, but I have some dirt, I have some seeds, but what do I put them in? Because I can't just grow everything just in a pile of dirt. Well, you could if you really wanted to, but let's say you have an apartment, right? And you don't have all that space. You just have like a little patio area or something. You don't have like all that room, or maybe you don't even have a patio. Maybe you're literally in a big old apartment building somewhere. You don't even have a deck or anything. Okay, well, what you can do is you can take cardboard boxes, okay, just like you get from Amazon. Any cardboard box will do. And you put your dirt in your cardboard box, you put your seeds down in it, you water them, you sit it by a window somewhere where it can get sunlight, and your stuff will grow. Okay, it's that simple. Now you might say, well, you're not going to grow a whole lot like that. Well, you can have many, many boxes. You can use old totes. You can take an old laundry hamper. If you're like me and you use hampers to carry your laundry in, I did for years, and the damn handles would always break because I crammed a bunch of laundry in it and it's heavy. And you go to pick it up and them damn handles break, and then you end up throwing the damn thing away. Well, you don't have to throw it away. You can take it, and you can take a trash bag and you can put down in it and fold it over, right? And then you can pop a few holes in that trash bag before you put it in there, obviously, because you want some drainage. And then there you go. You've got yourself a pot. You just made a pot that you can plant in. Any old tote, if you have cats, cat litter containers, you know, all that kind of stuff, you can put soil in and you can plant in that. You know, it's just about being creative. The nice thing about cardboard boxes is you always have way too many of them because you order Amazon or you buy something from the store, it comes in a box. Save your boxes and put your dirt in there, put your seeds in there, and plant in them. The cool thing about boxes is they will break down over time. So basically, if you take like one of those cardboard boxes like you get from Amazon, you put your soil in it, you put your seeds in it, you water it, there you go, you're growing, right? You grow your food in it. At the end of that season, that box is pretty much done for. Okay, it's starting to break down already. So you're not going to want to plant 2 years in a row in the same box. You probably could, but it might fall apart. And if you're in one of those apartment type situations, that's not going to be good for you. Okay, you're going to get shit all over your carpet, and your wife's going to kick your ass. Trust me, you don't want that. So at the end of that year, you take all those old cardboard boxes and you compost them. You let them continue to break down in a pile, and then you get new boxes, right? Because you've been saving your boxes, you got plenty. Easy way to do it. Easy way to do it. And cardboard is a great brown for your compost pile. You know, shred that stuff up, rip it up, throw it down in there. The worms, the insects, the bacteria, they love that stuff. They will eat up some cardboard. And they'll eat it up quick. Especially if it's either shredded or if it's in smaller pieces. They eat it up real fast. If it's just a flat piece, they still eat it, but it takes a little bit longer. But it's a great thing. Cardboard is your friend. Don't throw that stuff away. That stuff is gold. If you have property, you have some land, a backyard or something that you want to grow a garden in, cardboard is definitely your friend, because then you can break down your boxes so they're flat, and you're going to lay them all across your backyard, the grass. That's going to smother and kill that grass and keep it from coming up. Okay, you're going to water that cardboard down and let it start to break down. And then you're going to put your soil on top of that, your compost on top of your soil, plant directly in it. That cardboard will continue to break down over time, and it's going to turn into compost underneath your soil. So you're going to have a compost sandwich. You're going to have compost on top, compost on the bottom, and your soil in the middle. And your plants are going to love you, man. They're going to grow like crazy. Okay? Easy, 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 easy to do. You don't have to have money to buy pots and all that stuff. If you don't want to mess with cardboard and have all that stuff in your house, like I said, old laundry basket with a trash bag, kitty litter containers, yogurt containers are great. I use yogurt containers all the time because my wife eats a lot of yogurt. So I get those big old things of yogurt that come in like the big round deal, and I'll save those. And then once they're done, I'll wash them out and I'll pump some holes in the bottom of that sucker, and I'll take it out to the barn and sit it. And then every year when I want to plant my seeds, because I plant a lot of fruit trees and stuff, so I'll save seed for my fruit throughout the year, and I will dry it out and then plant it. And I start it in those yogurt containers and let it grow good and strong before I transfer it. That way it has a better chance to live. But you can use that same philosophy to grow other things. Okay, you can use those containers to grow like peppers or something like that. A tomato plant in, something like that, as long as you stake it. And that's as easy as getting a piece of wood out of a tree and just ripping it off the limb and popping it in there, and tying it to it with a piece of string. It's not a complicated process, but all of those kind of things are your friend. Okay, easy, cheap as hell because they're free, because you already bought them. They had food in them. You ate the food. Now you got this thing you're going to throw away. Well, instead of throwing it away, use it. Use it for your garden. You'd be surprised at the amount of things that you can plant in. I mean, it's just amazing. I've seen people take old file cabinets and make planters out of them. I've seen people take old stoves and make planters out of them. I mean, anything that will hold soil, you can make a planter out of. I've seen people take old aquariums they didn't want anymore and make planters out of them. You can take the tires off your car when you're done with your tires. You can take those and put them out in your yard and fill them with soil. And there you go. You got a nice planter. You can put like some real nice sunflowers or something like that in. It'd be beautiful. Paint the tire all pretty. I mean, anything that will hold soil is a planter. Anything that will hold soil is a pot. It just depends on how big it is. So there's no reason why you can't grow something if you wanted to. All you need is dirt, something to put the dirt in, a seed to plant, some water, which you can get right out of your faucet for free. Well, it's not for free, but you're paying for it any damn way, regardless, for your water. So it's free for this purpose. And some sunlight. That's it. That's all you need. As far as fertilizing your plants and all that stuff, we already covered that. You take your coffee grounds, take your eggshells, take all your food scraps, all your organic material, and you compost that down. You use that on your plants as fertilizer. You can even take all that stuff once it starts breaking down like that, and you can put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and or a kitty litter container, or any kind of container, it doesn't matter, any bucket, and put some water in with it and let it soak for several hours. And then you pour that water on your plants. That's called compost tea. What you're doing is you're leaching all the nutrients and the goodness out of that compost into that water, and then you're adding that to the soil on your plants to amend the plants and to fertilize them. Okay? None of that costs any money. You don't have to go down to the garden shop or Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or anything like that and spend, $15, $20 for a bag of fertilizer. It's not necessary. I mean, we got whole forests to grow. Who's out there fertilizing the forest? Nobody. Nobody's out there with a bag of 10, 10, 10 spreading it all over the forest. That's never happened. Nobody's out there taking care of that thing. It just takes care of itself. And that's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to mimic what God does, what a forest does. What a forest does is all organic material falls to the ground, piles up, and just lays there and rots. And what causes it to rot is moisture, air, and then the bacteria, the little microorganisms, worms, bugs, stuff like that, get in that organic material and eat it. And then they crap, and then their crap is fertilizer. Worm castings, which is worm poop, that's what they call worm poop, is one of the best fertilizers on the planet. And that's what you're going to be producing in your compost pile. Because the main thing that's going to be eating all your stuff in your compost pile are worms. Worms are fascinating creatures. They can go through so much. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of worms. The red wigglers are the best. You got, European night crawlers. You got all kinds of different worms. I can go through a whole list. We can make this whole show about worms if we wanted to. I'm fascinated by worms. I know a great deal about it. But you guys probably wouldn't like that too much. But suffice to say, worms are your friend. The more worms you have, the better. Okay? Because worms are what makes soil. And soil is what you need. You need good soil to grow crops. Okay? If you keep planting in the same area, you're going to deplete that area. That's what sucks. That's what we've done in this country. But the way to fix that is to take all of your organic material, all of your garbage that's organic, right? Like your plants, your meat, all that kind of stuff, anything that was alive. And you take that and you pile it up and you let it decompose. And that makes soil. And then you add that back on top of your fields. That's why manure works as a fertilizer. Because a cow is eating grass, which is organic material. It's being processed in its stomach, coming out the other end as a finished product, more or less. And then you take that, and it has all the nutrients of the soil still, other than what the cow has used. And then it has waste products from the cow, which the plants can use to survive. But then the good nutrients that are there for you will also get put back into the soil for the plants to use. You see what I'm saying? It's a beautiful cycle of life, man. And it's easy to make soil. It's not hard at all. And the sad thing is how much of that stuff gets thrown away. Between like normal people in their everyday lives throwing it away and restaurants and buffets and all that kind of stuff, there's so much that gets wasted and just thrown away. If all of that stuff was gathered up, all that organic material gathered up and composted instead, the amount of soil that we could produce would be astronomical. And then you could take that stuff and you can start on the edge of the desert and you start laying it out and planting in it, laying it out and planting in it, laying it out and planting in it. And before you know it, there's no more desert. Now you've created farmland out of desert. Now you got to capture water. And the way you do that is by digging like little half-moon pools for the water to gather in. Because the problem with the desert is there's no soil and there's no plant life to capture that water. See, what happens, it rains on the ground and it soaks in, and the root systems of the plants grab that water and they hold it, and the plant uses it. So there's always groundwater there. It's always going in and out of the plant. So you have something to hold that water in that area. When you have a desert, there's no plants. So there's nothing that's holding that water. It just kind of runs right off. A little bit soaks in, but not much. It just goes. Whereas if you have plant life, that doesn't happen. And the way to start that process is to dig little bathtubs, basically. I call them like little half moons, but basically you can build just like a trench, a little hole that water can gather in and stay, make little pools. And then you plant around those pools and you just keep spreading out. And you can literally get rid of an entire desert and make it fertile ass farmland again. It's awesome. But for the purpose of this challenge, what we're trying to talk about tonight, you can get your seeds for free from the food you eat. You can make your own soil, plus just grab dirt from outside. Or if you have a yard, just literally plant right in the ground. Okay, that's the easy part. The container that you use if you're not planting in the ground is pretty much anything that will hold the soil. So you can use boxes, you can use totes, you can use garbage cans, you can use anything like that that'll hold it. Easy. Okay, then all you need is water and compost that you're making anyway out of your food scraps and your grass clippings and your leaves and your wood and stuff like that. All that stuff can make compost, and that's your fertilizer. And then you just wait until it grows. You take care of the plants and you wait till it's harvest time. Now, once it's harvest time and you got to save that stuff, then you're talking more money because you either need to dehydrate them for long-term storage or you need to can them, both of which cost money. Okay, you can buy a dehydrator. That'll run you, for a cheap one, 40 or 50 bucks, all the way up to damn near $1,000 for like an Excalibur or something. A really good one is much more expensive. That'll cost some money, but you can accomplish the exact same thing for free. Now, it's not as quick and it's not as easy, but it can be done. One, you can put it in your oven on a very low temperature, like 100 degrees or something, and let it sit in your oven on a baking sheet for a long time until it dehydrates. That's doable. You can do that. That's not spending any extra money other than running your oven. Or you can do it like they did it in the old days, which is lay it out in the sun to dehydrate. Now, in that case, you got to worry about insects and stuff like that. That's why a lot of times what they would do back then is smoke stuff. If they're talking meats and stuff, they would set them up over a fire and they would enclose it in like leafy branches and stuff and put leafy stuff in the fire so that it makes a lot of smoke and it would smoke cure the meats. And basically what that's doing is it's cooking the outside and putting a layer of protection against the bacteria and stuff that it can't get in there, and drying it out. So, that's doable too. You can dry it any of those methods. I have a dehydrator. That's how I do mine. But you don't have to have that, or you can can. Now, canning, you got to go buy your jars, you got to buy your lids, you got to buy all that stuff if you want to do it the proper way. Okay, now we can get into canning a lot too because there's a lot of misconceptions about canning. They say that only a few things you can actually can the old way, that most stuff you have to pressure can. I'm not down with that. I've been cold bath canning my entire life. Okay, I do everything in the cold bath canner. I do meat, I do all of my vegetables. It's just, it matters how long you cook them. If let's say you want to do meat, okay, let's say you shoot a deer and you want to can that deer meat. Now, the government will tell you got to go out and spend several $100s and buy yourself a pressure canner. And you got to do it at so many pounds of pressure, depending on your elevation and all this shit, right, to make it safe. That's just not true. It's not the way we've done it our whole lives. For generation after generation after generation, any meat that we killed, we'd put in a jar, we'd close it, and we'd put it in a pot over top the fire. Basically, you put it on top of your stove top and turn the burner on. And that's how we did it. Now, we would cook it for 2 or 3 hours. And that would can it, and it would be safe. And we never had an issue. Never. If you look at the Amish and the Mennonites, they don't pressure can anything. They cold water bath can everything they eat. So do a lot of parts of the world. That's all they've ever done is cold water bath. And they're fine. Now, they call it cold water bath, but you're heating it over the fire. I've already explained how it works. But our government says you got a pressure can. I don't understand that because we never did it that way, ever. And nobody I have ever heard of or known has ever gotten sick. Never. I don't understand it. But they do it out of an abundance of caution. So for legal reasons, follow the guidelines. But I don't. I don't at all. I've done it the other way my entire life. My parents did it that way. My grandparents did it that way. Their grandparents did it that way. All the way back. We've done it that way as long as there's been people. And it's always worked and it's always been fine. The government puts their nose in a lot of shit it don't need to be in. Let's put it that way. And it's not necessary. But you don't have to buy all that stuff if you want to can. You're already using stuff that you can use to can. Okay, when you're buying like anything that comes in a glass jar, you can use. You don't have to go out and buy the mason jars with the ball lids. You don't have to do that. You can literally take an old mayonnaise jar, wash it out, keep the lid, and use that to can if you have to. We've canned in all kinds of different things. As long as it has that seal, as long as when you go, when you open it, that pop makes that seal sound, then you're good to go. And anything that's in a glass jar with a lid is going to do that. And you can reuse it. Hell, I don't change out my tops all the time. Because like on a mason jar, you got the jar itself, and then you've got the ring, and you've got the actual top that goes on the jar. After you can it, you can take the ring off and put it on a clothesline and hang it in your kitchen. I don't know why we always did it that way, but that's the way ours always was. And then the top stays on, so you can turn it upside down or whatever it's sealed. It ain't nothing coming out. Well, you don't have to throw that top away. You can reuse that thing as long as it's still intact and in good shape. Check it obviously before you do to make sure, because you want to keep that seal. You don't want to can something and have it not sealed. So you want to make sure that seal is in good shape. But shit, we use ours 4, 5, 6 times before we throw them away. Even to this day, I don't put brand new tops on every single time I can. There's no need to. It's still fine. But that's another one of those things that the government tells you got to do it a certain way, and you got to do it a certain way if you want it to be legal and legit. You know what I mean? But I don't care about legal and legit. I'm doing it the way I've always done it. But all that stuff you already have. You've already bought it. You don't have to spend any extra money to do it. Just get your biggest pot that you got in your kitchen, the one you cook spaghetti in for the whole family, that big sucker, big stock pot. And then you want something underneath of it. If you don't have the insert, the steel trivet like insert that you can put the jars in, that's fine. What we used to do back in the day before those were invented was we would take a tea towel. We'd take a big old stock pot and we'd take a tea towel or a big towel, if it's a big pot, big enough pot, put it down in the water, right? You just want something that's going to keep that glass bottom of that jar off of the bottom of the pot. So a tea towel works fine. Sit your pots or your jars in that pot on the towel and then get to cooking. If you want to make sure everything's really, really good and done, if it's something that's not like jelly or something like that, something they recommend you pressure can, but you're not pressure canning it, then just make sure you cook it for like at least 2 hours. On a boil. Now you don't want to just have it in there for 2 hours on low. You want to boil it. You want that water at a good aggressive boil. But here's the thing, listen. You got to make sure that your jars are already in your water. You don't want boiling water and then you put a jar in it, because that temperature change is going to crack your jar. So you're going to want to put your jars in the water and then start it going. Once it reaches an aggressive boil, that water does, that's when you start your time. So once you got it boiling, you're going to say, okay, now it's boiling really good. Start my time. 2 hours from now, I'm going to stop this and I'll be done. Now you have to add water sometimes, depending on how long you cook it for. Okay. If you add water, it's going to take that boil away. But here's the trick. Here's what I do. If I'm doing something like that where I'm going to have to add water and it's going to take a long time, I have one of those things you plug in that's like a pitcher that is like it just heats your water and makes it boiling, like for coffee and tea and shit. I forget what the hell it's called, electric kettle. I have one of those, right? But let's say you don't have one of those. That's fine. You don't need one. Get yourself a smaller saucepan, fill it with water from your tap, put it on the stove, and turn the burner on. Okay, so you got your burner here with your big stock pot going, and then you have a little saucepan that has hot water in it, it's boiling water. So if you need to add water, you add that water that's already boiling in the saucepan. That way there's no temperature change, you don't lose your boil in your pot, and you don't have to stop your time and restart it. Okay, because if you lose that boil, you got to stop the time, and you can't restart the time until that boil is going again, because you need at least 2 hours of continuous hard boil to make sure that that's safe and it's going to last. to where it's not going to go bad or get botulism or that crazy shit. You don't want that. So that's a way you can do that for free with stuff you already have. You haven't spent any extra money. You've already got the stock pot because the kids like spaghetti and you got to make enough to feed all them hungry bastards. So you got a big pot already in your house for it, right? You've already got the jars because you bought grape jelly that they love. You bought mayonnaise. You bought all those things. Nowadays, a lot of stuff comes in plastic as well, but you can still find it in the glass jars. Just when you buy that stuff, buy the glass jar one. And that way and save the jar. That way you have it. Save the jar, save the lid, you're good to go. Okay? Or if you're not worried about doing it for free, then just buy yourself some mason jars. They're cheap. They don't cost much at all. But this challenge is for free. So you can do it with what you already have. Okay? Any kind of glass food stuff that you have, save it. And there you go. So now we've got free seed, free soil, free containers to put the soil in if you're not planting in your yard. Okay? We can dehydrate it for free. We can can it for free. All that's left is to store it. And storing it is as simple as putting it in a box and putting it in the closet. You want a place that doesn't have a lot of light shining on it because you don't want to have that ultraviolet radiation coming out. It might cause some spoilage and some problems with it. So you're going to put it in a dark place, a cool place like a closet, a basement, a cellar, that kind of place. And you're gold, man. That shit will last for several years. And you have successfully planted, harvested, stored your food for free without spending a penny. Challenge accepted. Challenge defeated. Done. Easy. I'm going to throw over to old boy and see what he has to say about all this. Go ahead, brother.
Well, good evening, guys. This is not my my subject, so I'm not going to be too long. He picked something I absolutely don't know a lot about, so it's not going to be a whole insider there. But it sounds like he's telling the truth, and I think James is probably going to do this. He's probably just beat that challenge because I am not going to argue with him on this. I know a little bit about surviving. I know how to make a fire and I know how to cook stuff, but yeah, he knows what he's talking about. That's why I said, I was like, how the fuck am I going to even do this show? I could be the one eating, yeah, and waiting to eat. I mean, I guess we could make. That's about the only part I could get out of the show. I'll like to eat. I like survival stuff, so I watch a lot of those guys. That one guy with the glasses, I always watch him go in the middle of the snow. I think they said he got captured now on TikTok and he got arrested. He saw the Antarctica wall or something. Now they got him arrested now. But I always watch him. He's pretty funny. He's kind of tall, kind of have glasses, kind of looks like he's from the 60s, kind of has that haircut. He's always eating. God, he's always eating something. He's always cooking bread and honey. I don't know. Have you ever seen that guy? And he kicks his kids once in a while, and he's kind of like nerdy looking. He's a cool guy, but all he does is fucking eat, dude. But yeah, James is pretty smart on this stuff. It's kind of good to listen to what he's saying because I don't know all this shit. So I mean, that's why I said I'll probably be the one that eats it. Maybe kill stuff, like deer and stuff. I could do all that, and I know how to, like I said, start fires. I know how to track a little bit. I know my way around the desert. That's one thing I learned when we were younger. And my wife gets mad. She goes, "Why are you walking so fast?" It's because I got used to walking everywhere, so I did it in a fast time and got there faster. I'm also 6 foot tall, so I do stride. She's 5'1", so it's a whole different story. And she goes, "Why do you eat so fast?" Well, when we were younger, it's like military. We had things to do, so we ate real quick and hurried up and run. And I still have that habit. Not as bad as I did, but I would eat stuff super quick. And I would just, let's go, let's hurry up, let's go. We got something to do. And then what we had to do is we would go make forts in the desert because the desert's a little bit different than where James is up in the mountains. So we would dig out holes. And granted, we were like in our teens. And we made like little forts and stuff. And we did the same things, kind of survival. We had our fires. Back then, they didn't have the helicopters out, and there wasn't as many people then in the desert that there is now. And then you could do stuff like that. And we would get survival food like rations from the military and eat all that stuff, but I know really nothing about this, guys. But I think it's a good subject. It's good for you guys to know that we don't just do paranormal, we do stuff like this. So if like the zombie apocalypse ever happens, so here comes the paranormal part, you'll know what to do, or the end, or mutants or whatever the hell coming at you, rabbits that look like alligators, and you know how to survive. He just told you how to grow food and cook it and put it in a jar, and then he's not lying. I'm trying to add some comedy because I really don't know this subject too well. He knew it too. I was like, damn it, dude. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna say? The raviolis were good, but I what? One thing I was gonna ask. How long could you do it for? Like 5 years? The canned foods and all this stuff. Is there expiring times? Because that makes some sense to ask that question. How long you think you can get a good food for the last for how long? How long would it be?
For canned food, you're talking anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on what it is and how well you preserved it. Okay. On the lower end, 2 years. On the higher end, 5 years. For dehydrated food, you're talking, depending on the circumstances and what it is you're dehydrating, 50 plus years. Basically, it'll last longer than you. There's people that have stored wheat and rice and stuff like that long term and have opened up stuff that their grandparents dehydrated and ate, and it was perfectly fine. Because when you're dehydrating, you're taking all of the moisture out. Okay, and what causes food to spoil is light and moisture, because those are the two things that bacteria and microbial life need to survive. So if they have light and they have moisture, then they can get in there and eat on your food and spoil it, cause mold to grow and that kind of stuff. When you take away those two elements, then there's nothing to feed those things, so they can't survive. So they will die in that situation. They won't be able to spoil your food. So if you are dehydrating it and you do it properly, where you dehydrate it so it sounds like you're bouncing a rock on the table, it's that hard. Okay, and then you take it and you put it in a mylar bag. Okay, mylar is like a space age material. It's like shiny like metal. It looks like Reynolds wrap almost. You put it in mylar. You seal it. You vacuum seal it in. Before you vacuum seal it, you take a couple oxygen absorbers and you put those in. You can buy them like on Amazon. What an oxygen absorber actually is, it's those little packets that you get in a lot of your different stuff like pills and stuff like that. What is actually in that little packet, that little oxygen absorber packet, is iron. Is what's in there. Because as it ages and as it collects moisture, it turns into like iron oxide. And what that does is it attracts any moisture that is in the container to it instead of the food. So it'll suck any remaining moisture out that you don't get rid of from the vacuum sealing process. So if you take it, you dry it super hard until it's crispy, and when it breaks, it snaps, and you can bounce it off the table. There's no moisture at all. You put it in Mylar, you vacuum seal it with oxygen absorbers in there. Once that's done, I put mine in 5-gallon buckets. Okay, like you can buy them at Walmart or Home Depot, wherever, for a couple bucks. Like the big 5-gallon buckets that have the lid. I put them in that and then close it and then take that and just put it away somewhere. Because that keeps all the light out, it keeps everything out. And as long as it's in a decent area where it's not going to be, like underwater or something crazy, you'll be good to go. So you just want to keep the moisture away, you want to keep the light away, and that shit will last pretty much the rest of your life if you dehydrate it. Now
Okay.
properly rehydrating something, the best way to do it is with boiling water. That's the best way to do it. But you can do it with just regular cold water too if you had to. It just takes longer. But there's like brilliant things you can do. Like say you have chickens, right? Say you're really getting into the homesteading survival type scene, and you say, you know what, man, I can buy a chicken coop for $200. and I can put that in my backyard and I can get some chickens for that almost nothing. I mean, chickens are so fucking cheap, bro. They're a couple bucks a piece. You know, so I'm gonna put like 5, 6, 7 chickens, 10 chickens or something in that some bitch. And then I'm gonna have them in my backyard and I can survive. They'll lay eggs for me. Well, what you soon realize is that you end up with a lot of damn eggs, way more than you can eat. Because a chicken will lay an egg just about every day. So depending on how many chickens you have, you can see how that'll add up quick. You know, even if you eat eggs every morning for your breakfast, you might eat, 4 eggs, 5 eggs. Well, if you got 10 chickens, you got 10 eggs coming in a day, while they're laying. But what you can do is you can take those eggs and you can crack them, put them in a bowl, just like you were going to make scrambled eggs,
Yeah.
and take your dehydrator. And they sell things called fruit roll-up trays. They're used to make like fruit leather, which is a fruit roll-up basically out of. I'll explain that later if you all want to know. But basically, they're called fruit roll-up trays. Or if you don't have that, what you can do is you take a piece of parchment paper, right, like you would use for baking, and you put that over top of your dehydrator tray. Because see, your dehydrator tray is like a mesh, like a screened mesh. It has like holes for the air to come up through. That's what dries that moisture out. So if you have a piece of parchment paper, you can lay that down and then you fold the edges up to make a little boat, like a little container. You pour your scrambled egg mix in there. Now you haven't cooked it. You're just scrambling it. And like you're going to put it in the pan, but you don't. You pour that instead into the parchment paper or your fruit roll-up tray. You put it in your dehydrator and you dehydrate it until it's crispy, until it's completely bone dry. Okay, then you take that, and if you have a coffee grinder or a spice grinder, you can take that, put it in your spice grinder, and grind it up into powder. If you don't have a spice grinder, you can take your blender, your normal blender, and do the exact same thing. Blend the shit out of it until it's powder. And then you take that powder and you pour that back out onto another piece of parchment paper. Then what I always do when I make my powdered stuff is I will put it back in the dehydrator and I will run it for another couple hours to make sure that it is absolutely bone dry. Okay. Once that's accomplished, you take that and you put it, you can, if you're going to use it fairly soon, like within a couple years, you can put it in a mason jar. That's what I do, like a regular quart jar, and use it. But if you want it for long-term storage, same process with the other. Put it in Mylar, oxygen absorber, vacuum seal, put it in a bucket, put it away. Okay. What you've just done is you've taken all of those extra eggs that you had from those chickens you bought, and now you've got powdered eggs that'll last over 50 years. All you have to do is take a couple scoops of that powder and put water back in it, mix it around, and it's just like the day you cracked the egg and scrambled it up. Pour that right in your pan and you cook it, you got scrambled eggs again. Okay? Any vegetable that you dehydrate, any vegetable, you can take that and you can dehydrate it the same way, bone dry. Put that in your spice grinder, put it in your blender, whatever, powder it. Okay? I've actually got a video on the YouTube channel where I make powdered banana. Right? I take banana and I make banana chips and then I powder them. Right? But you can take any vegetable you want, or fruit really for that matter, and make powder out of it. Then you can take that powder and you can use that to supplement your flour, to stretch your flour, make it go further. And it changes the taste of your bread and your tortillas, whatever you're making. It makes them fucking delicious. Really damn good. But you can powder any vegetable too. So say you're growing a vegetable that you don't even really like eating all that much. Like say you can grow the hell out of some onions. Onions grow easy. Or let's say cucumbers or something like that. They grow easy, right? All those things. But you can't stand them. You don't like them. Maybe you grow a lot of squash and you don't really like squash. A great one to use is zucchini, because zucchini, man, them fuckers get ginormous. And you never can eat all the zucchini you grow. There's so many. But what you can do is dehydrate the zucchini, and then you powder that shit. And then you mix that in with your flour, and you stretch the hell out of your flour. And you can make bread and all that stuff, and you can't even taste the vegetable that you had. Or you can simply take that powder, and you can add some water to it, mix it around like you were making Kool-Aid, and drink it. And then you get all of those nutrients and vitamins and all that stuff from the food in a drink form. Boom, quick energy shot, and you get all your vitamins for the day. all from what you grew out in your yard, and all pretty much for free. You know what I mean? You don't have to pay anything for this. You're not going out and paying, $100 for a damn little bitty jar of green powder. Well, hell, all green powder is a bunch of different vegetables that they dehydrated and powdered and mixed together. That's all that is. If you look at the ingredients, you got like beets and spinach and all these different vegetables. That's all that shit is. Is they just take vegetables, they dehydrate them, then they powder them, and they put them in a jar and sell it to you for a fuck ton of money. When you could literally make that same shit at home. I make green powder and what I call red powder here. The red powder is a bunch of different fruits that I mix together, and the green powder is a bunch of different vegetables that I mix together. I dehydrate them, I powder them, and then what I use it for is for spices. Basically, like when I'm cooking something, I will take a scoop of the green powder and I will kind of sprinkle it over while I'm cooking. Use it just like I would use garlic or salt or onion or something like that, right? Powder. And you add a shit ton of nutrients and vitamins to the dish. So say all you want to eat is some garbage that you shouldn't be eating. Shit, you sprinkle some of that shit in your brownie mix and then bake yourself some brownies, you're still going to get all the nutrition you would have out of eating a big ass salad. But you're eating a yummy ass brownie. It's a definite cheat and it's a hack, but it works. You still get all that nutrition. So there's ways to preserve all of this stuff. And the great thing about powders and dehydrating is it'll literally last your entire life. Canning, you're only getting 2 to 5 years. That's the problem with canning. But canning is easier than dehydrating. It takes less time. Because, like, you can dehydrate some of the easier vegetables overnight and they'll be fine in the morning. But, like, for fruit, if you want to actually dehydrate, like blueberries or any kind of berries or fruit or something like that, dude, you're talking like 3-4 days in a dehydrator to get all the moisture out of that shit. And then more time if you're powdering them to make sure that they're bone dry so they don't rot. It takes forever to do fruit. Vegetables, most of it you can do overnight. And you can get started dehydrating so easily. I mean, dude, go to Walmart, spend $40, buy yourself one of those little poo-poo Presto fucking round dehydrators for $40, and then go over to the freezer section and buy yourself, 4 or 5, however many trays you got, bags of mixed vegetables, frozen mixed vegetables, and literally put them on the trays frozen. Just open the bag up and dump them on. Spread them out so that they're not piled up too high so they dry faster. Plug it in and let it sit overnight, and then check it in the morning. And then if it's not completely dried, run it a little bit more until it is. And then you just take that and put it in a mason jar, put it in a Ziploc bag, put it away, and you've got dehydrated stuff. And literally, if you want to make like a vegetable soup or something, all you have to do is take that and throw it into some boiling water, with a bouillon cube or something, and there you go. You got yourself a nice hearty vegetable soup. I mean, you can throw that shit in your crock pot and let it cook while you're at work. Put your dehydrated veggies in, put your water in there, your bouillon cube or whatever powder you're using, however you want to do it. And, if you're using chicken stock, whatever, and then just go to work. And when you come back at the end of the day, you're going to have a whole crock pot full of delicious ass vegetable soup. And it's all from rock hard dehydrated vegetables. You wouldn't believe it, but they'll rehydrate back up plump and yummy. And no problems, man. I dehydrate all of my shit, basically. I don't can much of anything. I do apple butter and stuff like that. I can, but I make that in smaller batches. I used to do that like a big 50-gallon kettle, big copper kettle, but I don't do that anymore. Now I do it like in my crock pot, and I'll make smaller batches. So I only have 1 or 2 jars at a time that I can keep in the fridge. I have like a couple on the shelf, one in the fridge. And when I run out, I just do another batch of apple butter. I don't do like a shit ton anymore because it's too much, man. It's an all day job to make apple butter. But if you put it in the crock pot, you can put it in and forget about it and come back 7 hours later and stir it. You know what I mean? It's not like when you make it in a kettle, you have to stand there and stir like this with this giant stick that moves these paddles around inside the kettle. And you're just doing this for 12 to 14 hours. Doing this all day, standing on your feet, stirring this big ass kettle of apple butter. And I mean, when you're done, you get a lot of apple butter because it's like 55 gallons of the stuff. So you're filling a shit ton of jars. You know what I mean? You get a year's worth of apple butter for everybody you know, but it's just so much work. And as I've gotten older, I don't want to do all that work. I got lazy. I don't want to do it.
And yet I still haven't got any of this famous apple fucking butter. It
I
pisses
thought
me
I
off
sent
because I've been hearing about it for 10 years.
I
No,
thought I
you
sent
never
you a
have.
quart. I'll have to send you some. Next time I make some up. I make this apple butter now, dude. That's like I use apple pie spice to
Yeah.
make it, so it tastes like apple butter, obviously, but it also tastes like you're biting into a fucking fresh, steaming, yummy apple pie. It's fucking delicious. It is amazing. I'll make a quart and send it to you. Next time I make it,
Well,
I'll save you out some and send it to you.
because I could always, because we sent you cookies, but yeah, Jackie's always wanted to try to send you tamales, but we don't know how that would last because it's so far, because
It probably wouldn't.
she makes Salvadorian and Mexican style tamales during Christmas time, and that we've always wanted to try to send it, but we don't know, it wouldn't, I don't know if it would last. We probably could, but it'd be expensive. But yeah, her tamales are really good, and her mom makes them and I eat good, guys. Like, I ain't gonna lie, my wife can cook really well, and that squash, she can make good soup. She makes tortilla soup. My wife is really a good cook. We ever get lost, she's gonna be the one cooking. If we ever get out of this, if we ever go get our own land and our own place, she's gonna be the one cooking. But we'll see. But that being said, yeah, guys, I'm you've heard everything you had to say. We've gone. This is something I'm not a really expert of, so that's why I said I was asking him with some questions, because I wondered how that would work. So it would be, you just have to do it a certain way, and you'd have to make sure you didn't get a lot of moisture in it, and you could probably live forever. If you knew what you're doing, get the right fertilizer, and I know worms. I know what he's talking about. He's 100% right on that. He did a thing about worms years ago, about 8 years ago, and it's got like 600,000, 500,000 views. It was crazy, and people liked it. It's fucking weird. Yeah, we had some weird shit. One thing he did about Sasquatch, what's funny is, it was like 15 minutes and we got 1 million fucking views and made absolutely no sense. It was just the article he was reading, and this is how crazy YouTube used to be like 6-7 years ago, and then we got screwed. But yeah, a lot of the stuff he said he's done before, like making water and penicillin out of fruits and stuff like that, I'm screwed because I'm allergic to penicillin. I don't know what I would do. Honestly, that's one thing I was going to ask. You know how, if you make penicillin, you could have thrown that in. I'm allergic to penicillin. So what could we do? I mean, I take other stuff. There's others. The Z-Pack is what they give you for that if you're allergic to penicillin or amoxicillin. How would you go to make a antibiotic then? I don't know how they do it. They don't use any kind of cheese product or milk, so they do it in another way. I don't know what that kind of bacteria is, but that's what I was going to ask you about. That's one thing that's interesting and I didn't think about.
Well, when you're talking antibiotics, okay,
Yeah,
the normal person, you only want to attempt what I did in that video as a absolute last resort. Because the problem is, whenever you're using mold like that you're growing on bread or fruit peels or something like that, you will get the beneficial molds you need, but you'll also get molds that aren't beneficial and some that are toxic. Okay, so distinguishing those, separating them out, all that. You don't want to do that unless you have absolutely no other choice and you're dying. Okay, but as far as antibiotics for this kind of situation, be prepared. Stock up, right? And a lot of people say, well, how the fuck can I stock up on antibiotics, dude? My doctor won't give them to me unless I'm sick, right? You don't need a doctor to get antibiotics. Okay, what you do is you go online and you look up fish antibiotics. Okay, like you give your fish in your aquarium. They're pills, just like the pills you take. They're the exact same pills. The federal law is that if you are making, whether you're making it for animals or you're making it for humans, if you're making any kind of antibiotic medication like that on the same line, they have to be 100% identical. So the pills that we're putting in the aquariums for the fish are the exact same pills your doctor is prescribing for you. 100% exactly the same. And the cool thing is you can buy them without a prescription because they're for fish, right? There are several companies that sell them. You can buy big bottles for like $17, $18 for a big ass bottle of amoxicillin, of penicillin, doxycycline. There's all kinds of different medications that they sell that way. Now, that's what I would suggest doing to stock up to have on hand. You can buy a big old bottle, like say amoxicillin is what you want to take. They make a version of that for fish. And it's the exact same pill your doctor would give you. When you take it out and look at it, it's got the same numbers. It's made exactly the same way on the exact same line. The only difference is they put it in this bottle and put a fish thing on it instead of putting it in this bottle for pharmacies. But it's the same exact pill. There's no difference. You can buy that online in giant bottles for under $20 for most of them. Some of them cost a little bit more than that, depending on what they are. But there's a whole big range of different medication you can buy that way. That's what I would suggest doing to stock up. That's what I've done myself. I have bottles of fish antibiotics here at my home that I have bought and I've stored so that if I need them, let's say society goes to hell and everything breaks down and I get sick, I need antibiotic, I've got it, right? And I'm not telling you something that I wouldn't do myself or that I haven't done myself. I've had abscesses and stuff like that that needed antibiotics. Instead of going to the doctor and getting antibiotics and waiting and going to the pharmacy and all that, I have taken fish antibiotics myself and they've gotten rid of my abscess. I was able to go into the dentist, get the tooth pulled out and everything. They work perfectly fine. I've used them myself. You know what I mean? I've tested it myself. I know 100% they're perfectly safe. And I know 100% they're the exact same pill that your doctor prescribes you, off the exact same line, made at the exact same time. It's just they're put in a different bottle. That's the only difference. That's what I would suggest doing. I think one of them is called Mercury Labs, maybe. If I'm remembering correctly, I might be wrong, but I think that was the name of the most reputable company that does it. But you can look it up on the computer, on like Google or something like that, and find it, and order it and have it sent right to your house for very, very cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Now, to some people, $20 might be a lot of money, but I mean, in all reality, if you're talking a big old thing of several hundred amoxicillin for like $15 or $16 or whatever it is, that's not a bad deal. And to put that back in your storage and it might save your life, your life's worth that. But that would be my suggestion to you. If you want to be prepared for that kind of thing, then make sure that you have antibiotics, make sure you have, Band-Aids, bandages, wound dressings, gauze, antibiotic ointment, like, Neosporin kind of stuff. And all those things you can buy generic brands of. In most cases, a generic brand is the same thing that the name brand is. It's just they put a different label on it. I've worked a lot of different jobs. I've worked in a lot of factories where they make a lot of this stuff. It's the exact same stuff. It's just this run is going to go and be Neosporin. So, okay, so all of this shit gets put in a tube that says Neosporin. Okay, now stop that. We need to take all the Neosporin tubes away. We filled that order. Now we're running an order for Family Dollar. So now we're filling the Family Dollar tube. Okay, go again. Now we haven't changed anything. It's the exact same shit that's coming out of the end of that machine. We haven't changed anything. It's just going into a different container. That's all. That's the majority of the time. That's what generic stuff is. It's the exact same stuff. All you're doing is paying for the name brand. Not in every case, but in the majority of cases, that's what you're talking about. Especially when you're talking medications and medical stuff, because there's federal law that dictates exactly how that has to be made. So it's not like they can make it any other way than the way that the name brand makes it. So that's a way to save money. But I would definitely stock up. I mean, I have stocked up on fish antibiotics. I have a lot of wound dressing kits and Band-Aids and antibiotic ointments and all that kind of shit. Make sure you have everything. And then make sure that the most important part of stockpiling and prepping and all of that is you gotta learn how to defend it, because it doesn't do you any good. Let's say you're a person that's afraid of guns, you don't like shooting, you don't like all that stuff. Well, the problem is you can be as prepared as anybody, right? You can have giant stockpiles of food and medicine and everything. You're set for the rest of your life. Ain't nobody gonna ever have to do nothing because you're 100% set. The problem is if you don't know how to defend it, if you can't, you know, use a weapon and you can't fight, what's going to stop me from coming along and just taking it from you? Now you've spent all that time preparing for me to take it from you. That's what's going to happen to people. You know, a lot of these people that are anti-gun, you know, weaponry. You know, the pacifists are going to just be growing their crops for somebody else to take away. So you got to get proficient with a firearm. You have to go to the range. You have to target shoot. You got to learn how to operate that thing. And it's okay if you don't ever use it. You know, if you buy it, you learn how to use it. You learn how to shoot properly. You learn how to do it safely. Then you can store it away, and you can store away your ammunition, and you don't ever have to take it out unless you're taking it to go practice. You want to practice every once in a while. Make sure you can still do it. But it's okay to not carry it around with you all the time and all that stuff. But you need to have it and know how to use it in case you need it for that kind of situation. Because if you don't have it, and I don't have any supplies, and my kids are hungry, your supplies are now my supplies. And you're going to have to kill me to stop me from taking them. You know, not me myself, because I got a shit ton of supplies myself. But what I'm saying is somebody like me comes along that knows how to fight, knows how to use weaponry, they're going to take your shit. And you're not going to be able to stop them unless you are willing to stop them and know how to stop them. You see what I'm saying? So it's all about being prepared. It's all about thinking, okay, what do I need? You know, water is another huge thing because you can't only live like 3 days without water, you die. You got to have water. If the grid goes down and society collapses, the water that comes out of your tap is not going to be safe to drink anymore. And before too long, ain't no water going to come out of your tap because there ain't going to be no power. So you're not going to have it anymore. So you're going to have to learn how to collect water. You're going to have to learn how to filter water. You know, you can build an easy water filter that'll make water safe simply with a 2-liter bottle. You take a 2-liter bottle, you turn it upside down, you cut the bottom off of it, right? You leave the lid on. You can punch a little hole in the lid, but you leave the lid on, and then you fill it with like charcoal, rocks, sand, and little pebbles and stuff, and some grass. You make layers going up, alternating layers of that. And then you pour your dirty water on top, and it'll filter all the way through all that shit. And when it comes out the bottom, it'll be crystal clear. Okay? Now, it's crystal clear, but it still might have microorganisms that can kill you. So you still want to boil it at that point. Don't drink it straight out of the filter. You will die, or you might die. Boil it. But if you want to get all the gross shit out of it, you can build an easy filter out of stuff right around you that can filter your water and get all the gross out of it. And then you boil the shit out of it, and you're good to go. You know what I mean? You can simply fill up a Ziploc bag with water and take it out and lay it out in the sun for like 8-9 hours. The ultraviolet rays from the sunlight will sanitize that water. That's another way you can do it. You can drop iodine drops in it. That'll kill anything that's in it. They say you can take a cap full of bleach and pour into a big gallon of water, and that'll sterilize it. I don't like that method because I don't like bleach. Like even smelling bleach, I cannot stand bleach. It drives me crazy. So that's not one I would use. But they say it works. But you got to learn how to produce water, safe drinking water for yourself. Now, any water you can boil and drink it. Boiling it, a nice hard boil for several minutes, will kill anything that's in it. So it'll make it safe to drink. But you're going to want to filter all the grossness out of it first if you want to be able to have it palatable. Because otherwise, it's going to taste like the inside of your shoe after you ran a marathon. And you don't, trust me, I've drank swamp water and shit like that. It don't taste good. Even swamp water after you filter it and boil it still tastes like the bottom of your shoe. It is gross as hell. You know what I mean? But you do what you got to do to survive. But a good filter will take 98% of that nasty out, even the taste out, which is amazing. And then you boil it on top of it, make it safe to drink, and you're good to go. And then simply flavor it, man. You can flavor it with pine needles, stuff like that. Pine needles are great because they change the taste of the water. You can make like a little tea, and they add a shit ton of vitamin C to your water. So you're getting a lot of good nutrients out of it as well, you know. Just a few little tips, but water is so important, and most people overlook that in their supplies. Now, I'm not saying you got to store a ton of water because water's hard to store, okay? Because it takes up a lot of room and it's heavy as hell. But what you can do is learn how to build your own filters. You can buy survival straws. They sell things called survival straws, which is literally a straw that has a filtration system inside of it that makes it safe to drink dirty water straight out of it because it filters it and kills the microorganisms that are in it as it goes up through. And then what comes out the side you're sucking on is safe to drink. You can do that. You can buy some of those and have on hand. Or you can simply have a pot and understand how to build a filter if you need it and boil your water and you're safe. But you got to make sure that you know what you're doing with water because you'll die of dehydration long before you starve to death. A long time before. So that's the most important thing is learn how to protect what you gathered and learn how to get your water. Everything else will kind of solve itself. I mean, hell, you could eat each other if you had to. I mean, it worked for the Donner Party. It's worked for countless pirates that have been, stranded on desert islands and shipwreck victims that are in a rowboat.
That's the last resort, guys. Just
Yeah,
remember that. Just so you know,
people do
last
that all the
resort.
time. So you can survive. But anyway, that's about all I got, man. I think that's pretty much the show. So if you want to go ahead and do your shout outs and all that, we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys all for watching us on Staring into the Abyss for the last 8 years. This is our eighth year anniversary coming in December. I think it's the 24th, or it was actually Christmas. So in a couple weeks, it's gonna be 8 years we've been doing this, motherfucker. Almost it'll be I think in July, about 7 years on Parax Radio. So I want to thank everyone that's been listening to us on Parax Radio and Spotify and YouTube and Facebook. Remember, always watch us on Staring into the Abyss every Sunday nights at 12 a.m., 9 p.m. Pacific time, and then the Best of show Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. You want merchandise? Go to Teespring, staringintotheabyss.com. I think I'm getting it right. Fuck if I don't. He'll tell you. He'll correct me. I want to give if you guys want to follow us on YouTube, go ahead. We're also on Spotify. Follow us. So everybody needs to get this going. On Spotify, We're Screwed is on Spotify on Staring into the Abyss. That's where people, why is it coming up Staring into the Abyss? We had to do it that way because we didn't want to have two different separate channels. That's why if you guys are looking for We're Screwed, remember it's on Staring into the Abyss. And that's what it's under on podcast. Remember, there's another Staring into the Abyss, and we told him to get rid of the name. It's not his. It has nothing to do. It's like criminal stuff, and we told him to get rid of the name. That's not us. If it doesn't have that fucking eye, it's not us. And We're Screwed is ours. So I want to give a shout out to Drunken Oracle of Celestis Shop on TikTok. I want to give a shout out to The Order and Tiger Bomb and Dragon for their fight in Memorial Weekend. I want to give a shout out to Daryl from Shadows Mafia. Just recently, his fiance passed away tragically, and I wanted to let him know that our thoughts are with him. Very sorry, brother. And we're always here, so remember that. That being said, I hope you have a good night, guys. It's December now. Keep warm. And have a good night, Misfit Shirleys, Monster Lovers, and Demoners. I fucking love you, and have a good night.
Yeah, for everybody that prays, go ahead and say a prayer for Daryl. He's going through it, man. I was just talking to him yesterday or day before, or something like that. He was messaging me, and we were talking, and he's hurting, man. He's going through it. So, yeah, he's in my prayers. I've been keeping him in my prayers and all that. And anybody that is a praying type person, say one for him because he could use it. And also everybody else old boy said. You know what I mean? Shout out to Tiger Bomb and to Dragon. I feel bad because I got them fuckers mixed up on We're Screwed yesterday or day before, whenever the hell we did that show. I got the two of them mixed up. I'm getting old, man. Shit, I turned 50 this year, and my brain don't work anymore halfway, man. Sometimes I just get, ugh, you know what I mean? And Celeste, I kind of owe Celeste an apology because Celeste came on We're Screwed we didn't actually air the episode, but she came on and we were talking and stuff, and it was a bad time for me. You know, no excuse. I acted like a dick, and we yelled at each other, and it was stupid. The whole thing was dumb, but this isn't an excuse, but this is what was going on during the time. I talked about this on We're Screwed. My wife's mother almost died. She had to go and have emergency surgery. My wife had to go down there and take care of her grandmother and her mom when she got out of the hospital for like a month and a half. I was going back and forth every day trying to take care of her. At the time we did the show, she had just gotten back home for a couple days, and I was trying to spend time with her. And then I had to rush over here to do the show, and she was over there crying and upset. And I was pissed because I couldn't be over there with her when she's crying, trying to deal with that. And then we're arguing fucking politics back and forth on We're Screwed with Celeste. And then I got kind of fired up, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was yelling. I was not actually yelling at her. I was yelling at old boy. Not yelling at old boy, but I was yelling, trying to explain something to old boy. And she, I guess, got pissed off at me because of it. But anyway, I kind of owe her an apology. So, Celeste, if you're watching, I doubt you are because you probably don't like me very much. And that's okay. But I apologize for acting like a dick to you that day. I was going through a lot of bullshit. No excuse. I'm a man. I own my shit, and I'm sorry that I shouldn't have acted that way, and that's my bad. But I was going through a lot of shit at that time, and all I wanted to do was be over there and comfort my wife. You know what I mean? Be there for her. And instead I was here doing that, and I was pissed because of it. And it's not your fault. You know what I mean? That's my shit, and I should have been better. You know what I mean? But like I said on the other show, I'm a sinner too. You know what I mean? I make mistakes and I fuck up, and I own them when I fuck up. So if you're listening, I apologize. And I know she's not mad at me. She's a cool chick. She don't give a shit. And I'm not mad at her. But just publicly to say it, even though it didn't air, and you guys probably have no fucking idea what I'm talking about, because I never put it up because I thought, you know what I mean? We talk like shit to each other, and that's just not a good look. And I didn't want to put something up making her look bad or anything like that, so I decided not to even air it. But it's something that happened, and so there you go. See, I told you, man, on this show and on We're Screwed, I always tell you the truth, 100% all the time. I don't hide shit from you guys. And I own my shit. When I fuck up, I fuck up. You know what I mean? No big deal. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you learned how to survive. And don't come for my shit when that happens, because I do know how to defend it. And I will eat you if I have to. I'm watching you fuckers. All right, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. And till we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present. Tune in every Monday at 10 o'clock for Dark Sun Rising on the ParaX Radio Network.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal, Para